Hey everybody, welcome back. Another Oxford IVG newsletter update. Today, Ryan and I wanted to go over KPIs. We're just data freaks over here. We like to track everything down to the nth degree and look at the trends and look at the data and figure out how to do things better. That's what we're going to talk about. So Ryan, you want to kick it off?
That's exactly right. We used to not be that way. We used to just track number of cold calls and appointments set monthly, and that was it. And we didn't understand our data. And then we got a little smarter and it got a little bit larger. And then we started spending money on how we're finding prospects and how we're bringing up new people into the business and how we're recruiting experienced agents. And so when that happens, it becomes more important that you need to understand your numbers and track your numbers. And I remember there's like a Shark Tank episode once, Mr. Wonderful was talking. He said, if a CEO doesn't know his numbers, I'm not interested in buying his company. It's just like, it's not a serious entrepreneur. And that kind of stuck with me. That was just, I remember something that I remembered when we decided to start tracking more of our KPIs. So KPI is very important here. We think it's important to understand where you're putting your energy, what the typical success rate, failure rates look like, where you would want to reinvest your money. You need to be tracking this stuff all the time when you know when to pull the plug. And so we're very big on KPIs here.
For sure. Yeah. And if you don't measure it, you can't improve it. Simple
Right.
as that.
So we got lots of different sources for new clients, client acquisition. We bring in brand new junior agents into the business, teach them how to cold call. We also teach them how to what we call live call, which would be just door knocking, walk in someone's office. We teach networking. We do a lot for SEO, paid ads. We get a lot of clients through just our organic reach. We're recruiting experienced agents more and more now. So there's lots of sources, but still our foundation is in getting your foot in the door, cold calling a stranger, heavily done by our junior agents and our team of full-time callers. And so we track it. And so obviously, old school, very simple, very important, make more calls, make more live calls, right? If nothing else, you have to have a system where you're constantly encouraging them to make more and more calls. And so we do that. We like to see our new business agents making at least 400 cold calls a week. If they're good, that tapers down to 100 a week towards the end of their first year. And then they also have kind of their live call. If they like to live call, we like to see them making 150, 200 live calls a week, and that can taper down. So that's important, right? But then beyond that, there's lots of different things, lots of different KPIs that we track. And so an important one would be the number of cold calls you need to make to get an appointment, your cold call to appointment ratio. Same thing for live calling. How many live calls, door knocks do you have to do to get an appointment? And we track that to get an idea of how well our agents are doing or our full-time cold callers are doing, how efficient they are on the phone. What's typical? What's a sign that they're struggling? What's a sign that they're on average? What's a sign that they're better than average? And then around that, you can goal set as well, if you understand your ratios. So our typical person we bring into the business, 400 cold calls to get one meeting in the very beginning. And then they progress through the year and they get better. And then we really target 100 cold calls per one appointment is generally, I don't want to call it average, but the average person that makes it, which they're generally good, but the average person make it's about 100 cold calls per appointment. And it actually gets better than that. Some are 20, 30 cold calls. But the truth is that's when they're database calls. They've been with us for a while. They're doing their follow-ups. So it's a different equation. But like early on, you're calling a list of strangers, starts out 400 to one appointment, and then 100 per appointment. And then for live calls, we're somewhat new to live calling. So we're still getting that all salted down to really understand it like we do cold calling. But generally, you start out about 200 live calls per one appointment. There tends to be a faster curve to the more improved ratio, about 40 live calls per appointment. But that's certainly something that we track is dials per appointment. It's a good indicator.
That's right.
And then another one is the DM conversation rate. So Chase, can you talk a little bit about the DM convo rate?
So I would say Ryan mentioned in the top of this that we used to really focus on that top line number, calls, make more calls. And as we've become a little bit more well-rounded across different ways of getting in front of people, so it could be the live calling, it could be cold calling, it could be some networking events, it could be different things like that. We really started honing in on, let's just really pay attention to how many decision makers you're having a conversation with every single week. And so if we know our numbers well enough, we can say different methods. You might get in front of X number of decision makers to set a meeting. It may be a little lower in person on a live call versus in the cold call, But generally speaking, we know if you can hit 15 or if you can hit 20 decision maker conversations every single week and be consistent with that, you're going to set 1 to 2 meetings a week. You're going to make it, right? You're going to hit the targets that we want for you over a whole year period.
That's right.
And obviously consistency is really the key there, but we've started more recently to focus more on that number than anything else.
Yeah, that's right. And we do two metrics on that. One is the DM combo rate, and the other would be the conversations per appointment, the DM conversations per appointment. And it sounds like the same thing, but it's actually, when we looked at the large, it's not. And so the DM rate on the phone, the cold call DM rate on the phone, conversation rate on the phone is important. Typically, it's between 5 to 10%, usually on average about 8%. So if you make 100 cold calls, you're speaking with 8 decision makers, right? If it dips below that number consistently, something's going on. Either you're getting blocked by the gatekeepers more than you should because you have a really bad intro. That's become less and less now that we have cell phones and direct numbers. But maybe your phone number is getting flagged. Maybe something else is going on. So we want to understand what's the ratio of their efforts to getting a decision maker on the phone, right? Or what their rate is for live calling. It should be a little higher, somewhere between 9 to 14%, typically around 12%. But if it dips lower than that, that means that they're just creeping out the receptionist or they're just terrible in person, like something's going on. So that's like a front end indicator. Hey, we need to give you some more coaching.
Right.
Sometimes it's their fault. Other times it's not, but we still need to see, oh my gosh, all of a sudden that's dropped below what like historical average is. What's going on? Let's figure it out. So that's important. But then once you're having that conversation, then it transitions to how many DM conversations per appointment do you get?
Yep.
And sometimes on the phone, it can be as good as 2 decision maker conversations will turn into 1 meeting, or maybe it'll be on the high end 20 decision maker conversations in person or on the phone to get 1 meeting. Average is about 10 to 15 is common, like 10 to 15 decision maker conversations to get that 1 meeting on the phone. And then in person, it's a little different. The ratio 4 to 1 is really excellent. 40 to 1 is on the higher end, but acceptable. 5, 6 to 10 in-person decision maker conversations will turn into a meeting. So hopefully that makes sense. But there is an important distinction there between the rate, how are you getting them on the phone, and then once you get them on the phone, how effective are you being persuasive enough to set that meeting?
That's right. Yeah. And then we always tell everybody you need more top level numbers. And then we're going to start there. And then once you're doing that and you're consistent with your numbers, then we really start dialing in these different areas of where does the improvement need to happen. And it's different for every person, every agent.
Right.
And I would mention that at the last SIOR conference and then one of the IBG sit downs, there was a mention about auto dialers doing multiple lines, trying to go quicker through it. We have some agents that do that. We typically find that has a lower DM connect rate.
Right.
Sometimes as little as half. And so I think if you're thinking about doing that, you really want to be able to churn out double the amount of calls just to be able to probably have the same number of efficacy with appointments. So if you're doing less than that, it may not actually work out for you.
And then so we'll snapshot a little image, I think, in this newsletter of all the things that we look at every week. Maybe we always lost some of our audience with all this data, but we actually track more than that. And so you'll see that in the image.
Shocker.
An important one, though, small but important, that we've learned is we track your follow-up percentage. So you're making all these calls, you're doing all these in-person live calling. What percentage of those are you scheduling a follow-up activity for? And if it's typically somewhere between 1 to 6%, 1 to 6, average is 3% for both of those categories. And if it slips below that, then the person is either wrongfully disqualifying people and you're giving up too soon, or they're just not doing a good job of extracting enough data to build their database to make their future self's life easier. And so that's a problem. And then if it's over 6%, sometimes we're looking at it like, what's going on? You're not actually being restrictive enough. You're just going to be just basically spinning your wheels, and just everything is a follow-up. And part of the deal is just possibly you're qualifying, disqualifying, honing in on your ideal client profile. So that's like an important thing to be looking at. And we've done a lot of training bringing on people. It's like the common mistakes and why do people burn out and why do they fail? And some of it is the person's just not going to do it, but sometimes it's just they're not doing it the right way. And as you build a larger organization, you have to some mechanisms to like just quickly see, okay, all these people are doing fine. These two people or this one person needs a little bit of attention right now based off of how that data expresses itself weekly. And so that's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mentioned we have a ton of data. We'll probably do some other segments on different KPIs down the line. The only other thing we wanted to talk about today was acquisition costs. So obviously we have junior agents that are setting meetings. We have cold callers that are setting meetings. We have web leads and just different things that we're investing in to find deals that way and just generate leads. And we really boiled it down to a cost per a first qualified lead or appointment set from each of those methods divided by simply by the cost that we're investing in that. We look at that on a monthly basis and we can review that over a 6-month or a 12-month period. And it's really to be able to provide an apples to apples comparison, these different acquisition sources. How does it stack up? Is it a good ROI? Is it worth investing in? And then when we're looking at a new software solution or some additional thing we could be investing in, we try to run some assumptions. What do we think we could get out of this? What does it need to be able to hit that average where we typically are with everything else we're doing? And if it's not better than that, is it worth spending that money on or not? So that's a go, no go decision for us before we implement something new or we decide to kill something we're doing.
It's actually helped us in recent history too, make quicker decisions. Like if we understand what our average cost is per qualified kept meeting from our web sources or from our full-time cold callers or from our senior agents, if we understand that cost maybe, and we have a junior agent that we like and we want to retain, and maybe we need to figure out some way to throw them some deals or maybe put them on some type of performance plan or draw or some type of base or incentives program. We know we like them. You can like quickly, like Chase and I, like, oh, we can afford this idea because we're spending this amount of money on these other sources. So why wouldn't we do that for this person? And it really helps you understand what you can afford based off of what the future return will be based off of your numbers. And we're always tweaking and getting more efficient with our labor. We have a big web lead presence. We have a big SDR presence, junior agents, and junior agents take a little bit more time, actually a lot more time than what we would get from the SDRs or the web leads. Typically, not all meetings, we like to look at the cost per first kept qualified appointment. So not all the appointments, we want to roll all the cost into what it cost to get a first kept qualified meeting. It doesn't mean we've closed it, but it was a meeting that was worth attending. And so based off the sources, we got it down to what, like maybe $650, $700 to maybe like $1,300 or $1,200 per appointment, kind of a range. And that's actually becoming more efficient as we've grown. We're getting that cost down, but at least we understand the cost per first kept qualified appointment. And then we understand, we won't talk about this now, but we track a conversion rate and our invoice rate. So we can be generally confident if we're spending this amount per meeting, X% of them are going to turn into a closed deal and the average deal is X. And then we know how to structure our splits and that we're making profit on these efforts. And then one final thing for the agents that we bring on board, we found there's people that will come on board and not be successful, people that do come on board and they are successful with us. Maybe they stay with us forever. Maybe they go to another competitor. We found like the minimum first kept qualified appointments necessary to be successful, at least here, is 36. That's the minimum, 36 first kept qualified appointments per year per new agent to be successful in the business. On the low end, on the high end is 60 to 65, but average is 51. And so we're always really encouraging week to week our new people, the business, are you on track to get those 51 first kept qualified appointments for your first year and your second year? If not, what do you need to do to catch up? And that's an incredibly important metric.
Yep. That's it.
Yeah.
I think that probably does it for this edition.
Okay. And then also really excited to announce this. Our next newsletter is going to be focused on KPIs for broker owners, which is completely different topic, different data points. But if you're going to bother with owning a brokerage company more than I think a couple agents and a support staff person, very important to understand what those leadership broker owner KPIs would be.
So look forward to getting into more data with everybody next time around. I hope you enjoyed it. So respond back and let us know if you have any suggestions for content down the line. If you liked it, you hated it, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.